every day that we get is a precious gift, and I'm thankful for it every day. But the biggest gift, the greatest thing, the thing that I am most thankful for is that
Hey folks, welcome to the Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Merle, and it's time again for yet another Friday's Fighter edition of the Transplant Helper, where I allow you 2 to 3 minutes in the spotlight to tell your story in your own words. Now, with that said, let me explain to you, I've yet to meet any of us who can actually tell our story in 2 to 3 minutes, so you might notice these programs run a little bit longer than that, and that's okay because these stories are so worth hearing. Now, today, I'm so excited about our special guest today. Brad Martin has submitted his story to the Transplant Helper so that I could turn around and share it with you. Now, his story is one of transplant that goes way back. And what I mean by that is not that he's been surviving transplant for all that long. As a matter of fact, he's just celebrated his 1-year anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. However, that doesn't mean he's not experienced with heart issues and with dealing with difficult situations. As a matter of fact, he dealt with these things for a little bit over 2 decades while awaiting a heart transplant. So you know that can be certainly a struggle. That's certainly something difficult to do. And so he is excited to tell his story. Now, the beautiful thing about his story is he's going to get toward the end of this and share with us what a success this transplant has been and how much better he feels and all the opportunities he's had added to his life as a direct result. But you're not really here to hear from me. So let's go ahead and let's turn it over to Brad and he'll tell his story. Take it away, Brad.
Hello, Jim Merle, the Transplant Helper. My name is Brad, and I am a very grateful heart transplant recipient. And before I get into my story, first of all, let me thank you for being the Transplant Helper and advocate and for all your help and support. My story, like any transplant survivor, goes on, and I think that's the biggest point of it all. The gift of organ donation means that life can go on. My story started back in 1999 when I was first diagnosed with heart failure or an enlarged heart. I just moved halfway across the country to a new state, to a new world for me in my early 20s. Everything was brand new. And a couple of months after moving, I caught a flu bug that was going around, and it was going around at the job that I worked. Everybody caught it. Everybody was out for a few days. They all got better. When it came my turn, when I finally caught the bug, after a few days, I wasn't getting better. Couldn't breathe, especially laying down. I was very weak, tired all the time, just not improving. I thought, man, this is one tough cold. But at the begs and pleas of my then girlfriend, I finally went reluctantly to the hospital and was diagnosed after a chest x-ray with an enlarged heart. And that's when everything changed. For the next 18 years, I struggled to make changes in my lifestyle and in my diet to accommodate this new illness. And I managed for 18 years. As anyone who's been in this position, the changes in diet, the changes in lifestyle are not easy, and they were difficult for me too, especially the salt restrictions. But with the help and support of loved ones and friends and family, over time, I managed. There were trips in and out of the hospital as I struggled to make adjustments. As there was fluid overload, there was me doing too much, working too much. Finally, after many years, I tried for disability, found a job, went back to work, got denied because, I went back to work. But over time, continued to try and live a normal life as most I could, continue to try and be a productive part of society. And the more I tried, the worse I got, until eventually I ended up on disability and relaxing. And for a while, that was actually kind of great. It was a very difficult decision to make and difficult to give in and say, all right, I need disability. But once I finally stopped working and focused on my health, it was a short-term a relief, but still a struggle, because being sick can be a full-time job. Having such a serious illness can be a full-time job. And over the years, on top of the heart problems, I was also diagnosed with VTAC and VFib, ended up with a defibrillator pacemaker, and over the years I went through several. I went through 5 in total. It went from just a basic defibrillator to a BiV, where it started pacing the bottom of my heart. And once I got my first one of those, that made a big difference and gave me some energy back. But it only lasted so many years, and things faded again. I went through several relationships, several marriages, more than I wish to count. I had a couple of kids along the way through a couple of different relationships. My daughter lives with her mom. She's well taken care of, and we try to stay in touch. My son lives with me, and I, through all of these health conditions, have struggled to be a father and raise him with autism. But I've managed, and definitely with the support and help of others. Moved around several years through different states, but I am now in a position where I finally landed with a very good, solid support system, solid relationship, and a lot of help, which allowed me, when it became time, as my health started to fail, started to get worse, I had a support system in place. It took years to achieve this, but I had a support system in place that made it much easier for me to do what needed to be done. In late 2016, things really started to take a downward turn for me. I had managed for many years, making adjustments, managing with diet, managing with medicine, managing with what little exercise I could, managing to keep myself busy with hobbies or whatever I could do to try and keep my health up as much as I can. But in late 2016, it just really started to take a dive. My health really started to take a dive. That Thanksgiving I spent in the hospital on fluid overload. The fluid pill wasn't enough. They changed me from Lasix to Bumex because it's more powerful. They didn't give me enough at first. I ended up in the hospital. They made adjustments. They increased it. They got me better. I got back home. Things were okay for a while, but they weren't the same, and I could feel myself really starting to slip at this point. It was also about time for another device replacement. The battery was dying on the third one that I had, excuse me. I had been happy with it for 5 or 6 years, but it was time to get a new one. They scheduled that, put in the new device in 2017, about March, I think it was, March or April of 2017, it got infected. Landed me in the hospital. They had to pull that device out along with all of its associated wires, which was a little bit scary because some of those wires had been in there like 10 years of my life. They replaced the device, but they didn't replace the wire. So that was very frightening, but they managed to pull it out. Now here I am back the way I was years before with a weaker heart, and without that extra support of the BIV, that was very tough, and I continued to go downhill. I had to be on antibiotics for a month. For the first week and a half, I was in the hospital, but they were ready to send me home. And right about the time that they were going to send me home, I went into AFib, which I had a history of VFib, but not so much AFib. So I started having AFib. They couldn't get me out of it. They had to they had to shock me because I didn't have a device. They had to take and sedate me and shock me and get me out of it. Got me back stable. Wanted to send me home. I wasn't comfortable going home with as weak as I was, as bad as my health was. So they ended up sending me to a rehab type facility where I stayed on the antibiotics until it ran its course because I had to be on it a month. Sent me home after that was done. And not even a week later, I was back in the hospital. More problems breathing, more problems with energy, just generally feeling awful. And I ended up on Milrinone at that point. They got me stable after some struggling, after several days, weeks in the hospital, sent me back home, immediately started feeling awful again, was back in the hospital in like 2 days. And by this point, it was determined, all right, they had started working me up for the transplant list at the end of 2016. The longest part about that was not all the procedures, was not getting tested and getting approved, saying it's time for you to get on the list. The hardest part was insurance. And once that was tackled, then it was a matter of dental clearance. And I kept trying to get to a dentist to get some things settled, but I kept ending up back in the hospital. So finally, stuck in the hospital, couldn't leave. They got dental clearance through a surgeon in the hospital, finally got me on the list. And about a week later, thankfully, because I'm AB negative and apparently a rare blood type, I was able to get a heart pretty quick. And I'm very thankful that I was listed as a 1B by that point. But I was very close to a 1A status. I was a 1B status when I got listed. Within a week, I got my transplant, and the real struggle began. The surgery itself for the transplant went well. The doctor told my family and my friends that it was the largest heart he had pulled out as of yet. I looked at the charts later, and it was about 3 times the size and weight of a normal heart. He sent me a picture of it. He made the comment that he actually, for the first time, had to request assistance lifting it out of my chest. So that's a bit alarming, but it is what it is. The recovery did not go so smoothly. My kidneys did not recover from the experience. They have not completely failed, but they're not working well enough on their own. I am currently on dialysis. Started that 2 days after surgery. My lungs closed back up and I had to be re-intubated. I spent quite a bit of time in ICU recovering, so much so that I lost all of my strength and couldn't even get out of bed. I ended up finally getting better to where they can move me out of ICU after a bout of ICU psychosis. That was a lot of fun. The vampires were coming to get me. There's lots of humorous stories involved in that, where I just basically clocked out for a while. They got me moved to another room, decided I definitely need physical therapy before I go home. So I did that for a few weeks and struggled and worked to get myself back to the point where I could actually get out of bed, get off of the toilet, get myself to the toilet, and things of that nature. It was quite the struggle, but it's been well worth it. I'm home now, have been for several months. I'm doing much, much better. The kidneys never did recover. I'm still on dialysis, but I'm still feeling and doing so much better than I was prior to transplant. I'm now able to very happily bike myself, ride my bike to doctor's appointments, to the pharmacy, to the grocery store. I'm absolutely loving that rather than cranking up the car and burning gas. I can go out and get exercise just by biking to the local supermarket, to my therapist appointment, to my doctor's appointment, to the nephrologist appointment. I'm loving it, being able to do things again that I didn't think I was going to be able to do, to spend time, physical activities with my son, with my daughter, things that I didn't think I was going to be able to do. It's so wonderful to be able to get out and do these things. Even though I have to lather on the sunscreen and be a little bit careful, it's still wonderful to be able to get out and bike or walk down to the local park and actually go down the hill into the park for a change. Something that I used to take my son by car to this park, the park that I now walk to or bike to. I used to have to drive my son by car to play on the swings and would stand at the top of the hill of the paths leading down into the park, into the trees and into the lake and a river, or a creek, I should say, that I didn't even know was down there because I was too afraid to go down that hill for fear I wouldn't make it back up because I didn't have the energy. Now I'm riding my bike in and out of there. It's amazing. And as you can see behind me, this collection of little 3D metal models, that's something else that I've done. I've got my own YouTube channel where I build these models and share tips and build strategies with enthusiasts. And that's something that's helped me keep my mind busy while I was on disability, while I was waiting, while I was having all these health problems. Rather than sit around and let my mind fester and all the negative, I've made it a point of keeping myself busy with some sort of activities, some sort of hobbies, whether it be tinkering on lawnmowers or maybe a little bit of work on the car, although slowly because I didn't move fast, or these metal models, which turned into my own YouTube channel and my own big hobby that I can share with others, and it's helped keep me going. And now I have more energy to do even more than I had before, and it's wonderful. I have just passed my 1-year anniversary a few days ago, and I'm still kicking, feeling better than I ever have before. My 1-year appointment is coming up, not quite here yet, but I have no reason to expect anything negative about this appointment. No rejection so far. Everything's looking great. Hope it stays that way, but I also know that who knows what can happen in the future. Every day that we get is a precious gift, and I'm thankful for it every day. But the biggest gift, the greatest thing, the thing that I am most thankful for, is that I have more time with my kids, but most of all, my kids have me for longer. They have me for guidance, me as a father. I'm still in their lives, and that is the greatest gift. Not that I still have time with them, but they still have me. The greatest gift of all. They still have their father. That is what I am most thankful for.
What can you say to that other than wow? I mean, really, especially that last part, it really hits home with what transplant is all about and how important organ donation is. Now, let me add to this. If you're already one of these people who've been watching several of these Fridays Fighters, maybe you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I would love to share my story as well. I would encourage you to go on over and hit me up over on my Facebook, private messenger, whatever. Maybe reach out to me at jim@thetransplanthelper.com. Any way you choose to do it, let me know that you would love to tell your story, and then I will turn around and send you instructions on how you can go about and do that. I really appreciate you joining this program today. I appreciate all that you do to support the Transplant Helper community. If this program has helped you out and encouraged you in any way, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Maybe share it out with a friend or family member who might benefit from it, as well as the fact, go ahead and hit that big subscribe button, maybe the bell notification off beside this. And also, let me add to this, I've got a link in the description below to Brad's channel if you'd like to check out the awesome work that he's doing. Wow, he does great work. Little intricate work, you might mind you, but it's still great work, and I love it. As a matter of fact, my son, who's 12, who's big into Legos, he has a channel as well. Brad is going to become one of his heroes as he watches more of these videos. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, please stay stronger, friends.